Imagine a secret so powerful, so dangerous, that entire kingdoms trembled at its mere whisper. A brotherhood of warrior monks, clad in white robes emblazoned with the blood-red cross, amassed unimaginable wealth, wielded forbidden knowledge, and vanished overnight, leaving behind only cryptic clues and a legacy shrouded in mystery. This is the story of the Knights Templar. Their rise was meteoric, their fall even more spectacular, and the secrets they left behind, they've haunted historians, treasure hunters, and conspiracy theorists for centuries. What if I told you their greatest mysteries are still waiting to be uncovered? Picture this: beneath the ancient stones of forgotten chapels, hidden beneath the floors of European castles, or perhaps even scattered across the globe, lies the Templars' lost treasure. Not just gold and jewels, though there was plenty of that, but something far more valuable: ancient relics, sacred texts, even whispers of the Holy Grail itself. These knights didn't just protect pilgrims, they guarded secrets so explosive, their very existence threatened the powers of their time. And when the King of France turned on them in a single, bloody night, the Templars didn't just disappear. They left behind a puzzle, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to truths we're still piecing together today. So what really happened to them? Why were their rituals so clandestine, their symbols so cryptic? From their hidden initiation rites to their rumored connections with other secret societies, the Templars operated in shadows, and those shadows stretch all the way to our modern world. Over the next few minutes, we're diving deep into 25 of their most astonishing secrets. Some will challenge everything you thought you knew about history. Others might just make you question what's still out there, waiting to be found. This isn't just a story of knights and kings. It's a detective story, a treasure hunt, and a mystery wrapped in a 700-year-old enigma. And trust me, by the end, you'll never look at history the same way again. Their story begins not with grand battles or legendary treasures, but in the shadows of history where fact blurs into legend. Most accounts say the Knights Templar were founded in Jerusalem around the year 1118, when a French knight named Hugues de Payens and 8 companions pledged themselves to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. But here's where things get murky. Why just 9 knights? How did this small band of warriors with no apparent wealth or influence suddenly gain the backing of kings and popes? Some believe their true origins stretch back further, tied to ancient lineages or forgotten orders. One tantalizing theory suggests the Templars didn't emerge from nowhere. They were the continuation of something much older. Legends whisper of ties to the Knights of the Round Table, or even to the shadowy Priory of Sion, guardians of a sacred bloodline. Others point to Hugues de Payens himself, questioning whether he was merely a humble knight or a man with hidden connections to European royalty. Why, for instance, did King Baldwin II of Jerusalem grant them quarters on the Temple Mount, one of the most sacred sites in Christendom? Was it just for protection? Or did they already possess knowledge or even relics that made them indispensable? And then there's the mystery of those first 9 years. Historical records show the original Templars spent nearly a decade excavating beneath the Temple Mount. What were they searching for? Some speculate they uncovered lost artifacts, perhaps the Ark of the Covenant, fragments of the true cross, or even ancient scrolls containing forbidden wisdom. Whatever they found, it transformed them from a handful of knights into one of the most powerful organizations in medieval Europe. By the time they stepped into the light, their influence was already unmatched. But the question remains, what really happened in those shadowy early years? The truth might still be buried, waiting to be unearthed. The Temple Mount wasn't just a sacred site, it was a vault. When the Knights Templar took up residence there, they didn't just guard the surface, they burrowed deep beneath it. For nearly a decade, their pickaxes echoed through underground chambers, but what were they really after? Some say they sought the Ark of the Covenant, that golden chest said to hold the very power of God. Others believe they hunted for Solomon's treasure, legendary wealth hidden away since biblical times. But the most compelling theory, they weren't just digging for gold or relics, they were uncovering knowledge. Ancient texts suggest the Templars may have found scrolls buried beneath the Temple Mount, writings that contained heretical truths about early Christianity or even lost wisdom from civilizations older than Jerusalem itself. Imagine stumbling upon a library of forbidden manuscripts, texts that challenged the Church's authority or revealed secrets of alchemy and geometry. That could explain how a small band of knights suddenly gained unprecedented influence. They didn't just have wealth, they had leverage. Then there's the mystery of their rapid architectural advancements. After their excavations, Templar buildings across Europe began featuring precise mathematical designs advanced for their time. Did they uncover ancient blueprints or esoteric teachings beneath the temple? Some scholars point to the sudden appearance of Gothic cathedrals, their soaring arches mirroring descriptions of Solomon's temple. Coincidence or proof, the Templars brought back more than just rumors, and let's not forget the rumors of something darker. Whispers persist that the knights found not just relics but remnants of a pre-Christian cult, artifacts tied to pagan rituals or even fallen angels. Could their famous secrecy have been a way to shield the world or themselves from what they'd unearthed? Whatever lay beneath those stones, one thing's certain: when the Templars emerged, they were no longer just warriors. They were keepers of a secret so profound it reshaped medieval Europe and may still be waiting, hidden in plain sight. They weren't just warriors, they were bankers. And their financial empire didn't just change the game, it invented the game. While most remember the Knights Templar for their swords and secrecy, their true revolution happened with ink and parchment. Imagine a medieval king desperate to fund a crusade or pay an army, but gold was heavy, dangerous to transport, and easily stolen. Enter the Templars. They didn't just guard treasure, they made it move like magic. Their system was shockingly modern. A pilgrim could deposit gold at a Templar preceptory in Paris, receive a coded letter, and walk into a Templar outpost in Jerusalem to claim their funds. No armed caravan, no risk of bandits. It was the first international banking network, centuries before the term existed. Kings and merchants flocked to them, not just for security, but for loans. The Templars financed wars, built castles, and even bailed out monarchs. At one point, they essentially owned the entire French crown's debt. But here's where it gets fascinating: they invented the check. That piece of paper in your wallet, you can trace its roots to Templar script. A merchant could write instructions to transfer funds to another party, authenticated by the order's seals, essentially an early version of a financial instrument we still use today. Yet with great power came great danger. Their vaults overflowed with royal IOUs, making them indispensable until they weren't. When Philip IV of France eyed their wealth, their financial web became a noose. The same system that made them untouchable turned them into targets, because if you control the money, you control the kingdom, and that's a secret worth killing for. The blood-red cross emblazoned on the Templars' white robes wasn't just a badge, it was a declaration, a cipher, and perhaps even a confession. At first glance, it symbolized martyrdom, a pledge to die for Christ in the Holy Land. But peel back the layers, and this simple symbol becomes a portal into the Order's most guarded secrets. Why red? Not the gold of kings or the blue of the Virgin, but the vivid hue of sacrifice. Or blood. Some historians argue it represented the Templars' readiness to spill their own for the faith. Others whisper it hinted at something far older, a connection to the Johannite heresy, which claimed the cross wasn't a tool of salvation but of murder, and that the true Christ never died upon it. Alchemists of the era saw deeper meaning in the emblem. Red was the color of the great work's final stage, the transformation of base matter into spiritual gold. Was the cross a coded nod to their pursuit of hidden knowledge? The white robe symbolized purity, the red cross the fire of transformation, fitting for an order rumored to guard alchemical secrets. Even the shape held power. The equal-armed cross-pate mirrored ancient symbols of balance found in Egyptian temples and Gnostic art. Then there's the placement. Unlike other orders, the Templars wore their crosses over the heart, not the shoulder, a mark of personal devotion or a silent allegiance to doctrines the Church condemned. When the order fell, their accusers claimed initiates kissed this cross during rituals, spitting on it to renounce Christ. Whether true or fabricated, the symbol's power was undeniable. It became a target, literally and figuratively. After the purge, wearing it meant death, yet in secret some kept the emblem alive, etching it into stones or hiding it in manuscripts. Today, it still burns bright, not just in history books, but in the imaginations of those who sense there's more to this scarlet enigma than meets the eye. The night the Templars fell, more than men were lost. Entire fleets slipped into the fog of history, never to be seen again. While King Philip's soldiers stormed preceptories across France, something peculiar happened along the Atlantic coast. Templar ships laden with untold wealth and guarded by loyal knights vanished without a trace. Port records from La Rochelle, their primary naval stronghold, show a mass exodus in the days before the arrests. But where did they go? The answer might rewrite history. Some believe these ships made for Scotland, where Robert the Bruce, excommunicated and at war with England, offered sanctuary. It's no coincidence that Templar symbols began appearing in Scottish stonemasonry soon after, woven into the architecture of Rosslyn Chapel like a coded message. Others whisper of a far bolder escape, a transatlantic voyage decades before Columbus. Ancient maps like the controversial Vinland map show coastlines too accurate for medieval cartographers unless someone had already sailed there. Legends from Newfoundland to Rhode Island speak of white knights trading with natives or burying strange artifacts. Could the Templars have reached the New World carrying treasure too dangerous to leave behind? Then there's the mystery of the Oak Island Money Pit, a booby-trapped shaft where Templar-style markings hint at something buried deep. For centuries, treasure hunters have tried and failed to reach its bottom, as if the island itself guards its secrets. Whether in Scottish vaults or American soil, one thing is clear: the Templars didn't just disappear. They sailed into legend, leaving behind empty docks, whispered sightings, and a question that still haunts us. What did those lost ships carry, and who was waiting for them on the other side of the sea? For 700 years, history condemned the Templars as heretics until a dusty, forgotten document in the Vatican's secret archives turned everything upside down. Known as the Chinon Parchment, this fragile piece of parchment, dated 1308, holds a revelation so explosive it rewrites the Knight's final chapter. Here's the twist: Pope Clement V, under immense pressure from King Philip, didn't actually convict the Templars of heresy, he absolved them. The parchment, rediscovered in 2001 by historian Barbara Frail, records a private meeting where Templar leaders, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay, confessed under torture, but the Pope declared their sins forgiven, restoring them to the Church's grace. So why did the order still fall? Politics. The document was deliberately buried, hidden away, while Philip's propaganda machine painted the knights as devil worshippers. The Pope's hands were tied. The king had already seized their wealth and staged public burnings. Absolution meant nothing without power to enforce it. But the Chinon Parchment reveals something darker. The trials weren't about heresy at all. They were a financial hit. With the Templars' debts wiped clean by their destruction, Philip avoided bankruptcy. The document's existence suggests even the Vatican knew the charges were fabricated, yet let the massacre proceed. What makes this so chilling isn't just the betrayal, it's the timing. The parchment was hidden until after Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake. Had it surfaced earlier, the Templars might have survived. Instead, it became a ghost in the archives, a mute witness to how easily truth can be silenced when gold and thrones are at stake. When King Philip's inquisitors dragged Templars into damp prison cells, they didn't ask about gold or land. They demanded answers about Baphomet, a name that would echo through history as the ultimate proof of heresy. But what was it really? A grotesque idol with a goat's head, as confessions described, a golden relic whispered to grant unholy knowledge, or something far more cunning, a word twisted into a weapon? The truth lies buried beneath layers of torture, lost translations, and the desperate scheming of a king who needed his enemies to be monsters. Start with the name itself. Baphomet doesn't appear in any Templar records before the trials. Some scholars argue it was a garbled version of Mahomet, medieval Europe's term for the Prophet Muhammad, suggesting the knights had secretly embraced Islam. Others trace it to the Greek Baph and Metis, meaning absorption of wisdom, a fitting for an order obsessed with esoteric knowledge. Then there's the chilling possibility that inquisitors invented it outright, splicing together syllables to sound demonic to superstitious ears. But the descriptions given under torture are even stranger. Some knights spoke of a bearded head that could make trees bloom and gold multiply. Others mentioned a face so horrifying it paralyzed those who saw it. Was this a relic like the mummified head of John the Baptist rumored to be in their possession, or a metaphor for something they'd found beneath the Temple Mount, an ancient artifact or text so revelatory it seemed alive? The most compelling theory, though, isn't about idols at all. It's about language. Templar initiates were often illiterate, trained to memorize coded phrases. What if Baphomet was a cipher, a keyword unlocking their financial network or secret rituals? When Philip's torturers heard it, they may have grasped at its exotic sound, molding it into proof of devil worship. After all, nothing justifies a purge like the specter of demons. And then there's the irony. Centuries later, occultists would reinvent Baphomet as a symbol of balance, half human, half beast, light and dark intertwined. The very image used to destroy the Templars became a testament to their enduring mystery. Whether smeared by enemies or guarding a truth too dangerous to speak aloud, Baphomet remains the ultimate riddle, a shadow cast by history's torch still flickering on the cave wall. The Holy Grail isn't just a cup, it's a mirror, reflecting whatever the beholder most desires. For some, it's a sacred vessel from the Last Supper. For others, it's a bloodline tracing back to Christ himself. But for the Knights Templar, it might have been both, and neither. Their connection to Grail legends runs deeper than folklore, winding through mountain fortresses, coded manuscripts, and whispers of heresy. Take Montségur, that jagged Cathar stronghold where resistance to the church crumbled in 1244. When the fortress fell, survivors claimed 4 men slipped away under cover of night, carrying something so precious it was worth dying for. Templar sympathizers were among the Cathars, and rumors persist that what vanished from Montségur wasn't just treasure. It was the Grail itself. Some say the knights secreted it away to their mountain preceptories, guarding it in plain sight beneath the arches of their churches. But here's where the story fractures. Medieval Grail romances like Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parzival describe the Grail not as a chalice, but as a stone, a relic called the lapis exilis, said to have fallen from heaven. Strikingly, these texts mention Templar-like knights guarding it. Was this allegory or a clue? Then there's the explosive theory of the sangreal, the royal blood. Not a cup, but a lineage, descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene, protected by secret societies. The Templars' alleged veneration of the feminine divine, their rumored ties to the Priory of Sion, even their mysterious rituals, could all point to a hidden mission far older than the Crusades. Perhaps the Grail was never an object at all, but a truth too dangerous to speak aloud, something that would shatter the Church's authority if revealed. Whatever the knights knew, whatever they guarded, one thing is clear: their story and the Grails are bound together, not by chance but by design, and that design might still be waiting to be decoded. Rosslyn Chapel isn't just a church, it's a riddle carved in stone. Nestled in the Scottish countryside, this 15th-century masterpiece is a tapestry of symbols so dense, even historians can't agree on what they mean. Walk inside, and the first thing that strikes you isn't the stained glass or the vaulted ceilings, it's the sheer volume of Templar imagery. Crosses, pate, swords, even knights astride horses, all etched into the pillars as if daring someone to decode them. But why would a chapel built nearly 2 centuries after the Templars' suppression be saturated with their iconography? The answer might lie in the shadows of Scottish history. When the Templars fled France during the Purge, many found refuge in Scotland, where King Robert the Bruce, excommunicated and at odds with the Pope, had little reason to enforce the Vatican's orders. Some suggest the chapel's builders, the Sinclair family, were covert Templar descendants, using stone instead of parchment to preserve forbidden knowledge. Look closer at the carvings and things get stranger. Among the biblical scenes are plants that shouldn't exist in medieval Europe, maize and aloe vera, species native to the Americas. How did Masons carve accurate depictions of New World flora decades before Columbus set sail? One theory points to Henry Sinclair, a Scottish nobleman rumored to have sailed to Nova Scotia in the late 1400s, possibly with Templar navigational secrets. Did returning explorers describe these plants to Rosslyn's artisans, or were the carves based on something even older, Templar records of earlier transatlantic voyages? Then there's the chapel's crypt. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed cavities beneath the floor, some aligned with carvings of the Ark of the Covenant. Local legend claims the chapel's foundation stones were brought back from the Holy Land, hollowed out to hide relics. Whether it's scrolls, treasure, or something more enigmatic, Rosslyn Chapel stands as a silent sentinel, a stone puzzle box waiting for the right hands to turn its locks. Official church records paint the Templars as devout warriors of Christ, but beneath the surface, their beliefs may have been far more radical than anyone dared admit. Among the most persistent whispers is their connection to Gnosticism, a secretive spiritual tradition condemned as heresy by medieval popes. Unlike mainstream Christianity, which saw the material world as God's creation, Gnostics believed the physical realm was a prison fashioned by a lesser, flawed deity. Salvation came not through faith alone, but through hidden knowledge, gnosis, that could awaken the soul. So why would elite knights sworn to defend the church entertain such dangerous ideas? The answer might lie in the shadows of the Holy Land. During their excavations beneath the Temple Mount, the Templars could have uncovered ancient Gnostic texts, perhaps even remnants of the Nag Hammadi library centuries before its official discovery. Some scholars point to their alleged veneration of John the Baptist over Jesus, a hallmark of certain Gnostic sects that saw Christ as a spiritual messenger rather than a divine sacrifice. Even their infamous initiation rituals, where recruits were said to deny Christ and spit on the cross, take on new meaning when viewed through a Gnostic lens. To outsiders, it looked like sacrilege. To initiates, it might have symbolized rejecting the material world's false god to seek higher truth. Then there's the curious case of the Beausaint, the Templars' black and white battle standard. To the uninitiated, it represented the order's struggle between good and evil. But Gnostics saw duality everywhere: light and dark, spirit and matter. That stark contrast echoed their core belief, the soul's journey from ignorance to enlightenment. Even their architecture whispers of hidden wisdom. Gothic cathedrals built under their influence often feature twin pillars, bows, and jacinth reminiscent of Solomon's temple, but also symbolizing Gnostic dualism. Perhaps most damning are the trial testimonies themselves. Under torture, some knights confessed to worshipping a bearded head that bestowed wisdom. Could this have been a distorted account of Sophia, the Gnostic embodiment of divine knowledge, or the demiurge, the flawed creator of the material world? The Church, desperate to paint them as devil worshippers, may have twisted their esoteric rites into something monstrous. Yet the greatest evidence of their Gnostic leanings might be their silence. When given the chance to defend themselves publicly, many Templars refused not out of guilt, but because their beliefs taught that earthly authority was an illusion. To them, truth wasn't found in papal decrees or royal courts, but in the secret recesses of the awakened mind, and that, more than any treasure or relic, may have been the Templars' most dangerous secret of all. Flames licked at Jacques de Molay's feet as he stood chained to the stake on that bitter March evening in 1314, but it wasn't pain that filled his final moments, it was defiance. With smoke thickening in his lungs, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar did something no condemned heretic dared. He recanted his forced confession. In a voice that carried across the Paris crowd, he declared the order innocent and invoked a curse so potent, history would remember it as prophecy. Before a year has passed, he shouted, "God will summon you both to account for this injustice." The "you" was unmistakable: King Philip IV of France, who had orchestrated the Templars' downfall, and Pope Clement V, who had silently allowed it. What happened next would fuel whispers of supernatural vengeance for centuries. Philip, known as the Fair for his golden looks but not his morals, barely outlived de Molay by 8 months. At just 46, the king suffered a sudden stroke while hunting, his body found half-eaten by wolves. The Pope fared no better, dead of a mysterious illness within the month, his corpse reportedly boiling with infection as if cooked from within. To medieval minds, this wasn't coincidence, it was divine retribution. Even the king's line wasn't spared. His 3 sons, who'd helped hunt the Templars, all died young without heirs, collapsing the Capetian dynasty and plunging France into war. But here's what rarely gets told: de Molay's curse wasn't just about revenge. Some scholars argue it was a final act of Templar cryptography. The Grand Master knew his words would echo through history, so he chose them like a mason laying a keystone. By naming Philip and Clement, he ensured their legacies would forever be tied to tyranny, their deaths seen not as natural ends but as cosmic justice. Even the timing was precise, a year's grace period, long enough to seem deliberate. Whether supernatural or psychological, the curse worked. Today, the spot where de Molay burned hosts a Parisian café, its patrons sipping coffee, unaware they stand where history's most infamous malediction took flight. Yet perhaps the true curse wasn't death, it was immortality. Philip and Clement are remembered not as kings or popes but as cautionary tales, and the Templars. They became legends because sometimes the most powerful magic isn't in relics or rituals, but in the stories that refuse to die. Consider the Swiss Guard, those crimson-clad sentinels standing rigid before Vatican gates, their halberds gleaming. To tourists, they're a postcard-perfect relic of Renaissance pageantry, but peel back the velvet curtain and you'll find whispers of a lineage far older, entwined with the Templars' shadowy survival. The connection begins in 1506, when Pope Julius II formally established the Swiss Guard as his personal defenders. But why Swiss mercenaries? Geography played a role. Switzerland's Alpine passes were a funnel for exiled Templars fleeing France 2 centuries earlier. Many found sanctuary among Swiss mountain clans, their combat skills and coded rituals blending into local militias. The parallels are too striking to ignore. Like the Templars, the Swiss Guard swore oaths of absolute loyalty, not just to the Pope, but to die in silence rather than reveal secrets. Their initiation rites allegedly included symbolic spitting on coins, echoing Templar trial confessions of desecrating crosses. Even their insignia bears uncanny resemblances. The Swiss Guard's crossed keys mirror the Templar cross pate, while their banners white and gold echoes the beau saint. Then there's the matter of their unexplained privileges. Unlike other papal forces, the Swiss Guard alone was permitted to stand armed in the Sistine Chapel during conclaves. Some historians suggest this honor traces back to a hidden pact, surviving Templars offering the Church their military expertise in exchange for protection. After all, who better to guard Vatican secrets than men trained to keep them? the most tantalizing clue lies in the Guards' archives. A 1527 entry details how a contingent fought to the last man during the sack of Rome, buying time for the Pope to escape through a secret tunnel, a tactic straight from the Templar playbook at Acre and other fallen strongholds. Coincidence, perhaps, but history rarely works in accidents. The Swiss Guard didn't just inherit the Templars' tactics. They may have become their living legacy, a brotherhood reborn under a different name, guarding not just popes, but the very secrets that once doomed their predecessors. When the king's soldiers came for them, the Templars didn't just flee. They melted into the earth, beneath the cobblestone streets of Paris, under the foundations of their mighty preceptories. A labyrinth of tunnels waited. These weren't just escape routes, they were arteries of a hidden network engineered for a night like October 13th, 1307. Start in the Paris Temple, their fortified headquarters. Contemporary chronicles describe secret stairs leading downward, passages wide enough for 2 horsemen to ride abreast, perfect for spiriting away chests of gold or sacred relics while chaos raged above. Follow those tunnels and they'd take you to the Seine, where boats stood ready, or north toward the Flemish borders, where sympathetic merchants waited with fresh horses and forged papers. But the real marvel lies in the countryside. Take Geyser's castle, its Norman keep perched atop a honeycomb of subterranean chambers. Local legends tell of Templars vanishing into the walls, only to reappear miles away in the forest of Nofels. Modern ground-penetrating radar has confirmed anomalies, straight, man-made tunnels radiating outward like spokes from a wheel. What's chilling is the precision. These weren't rough-dug holes, they were engineering feats shored up with the same stonework that built their cathedrals. Some even featured ventilation shafts disguised as wells, proving the knights had planned for sieges long before Philip's betrayal. Then there's the Habsburg connection. While France burned Templars, the German-speaking lands hesitated. In Austria, Duke Frederick the Fair, a Habsburg, quietly granted sanctuary to fleeing knights. Why? The Habsburgs were climbing Europe's power ladder, and they recognized value in men who'd mastered warfare, finance, and cryptography. By 1400, the family's rise was meteoric, their bankers and mercenaries oddly reminiscent of Templar networks. Coincidence, or did the knights trade their secrets for protection, weaving themselves into the fabric of a dynasty that would one day rule half the world? The most tantalizing clue lies in Switzerland's Château de Chinon. Its dungeons bear the same double-barred crosses found in Templar commanderies, and its location guarding the Alpine passes to Habsburg lands was too strategic to be accidental. When archaeologists uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the chapel in 1962, they found no treasure, just an empty stone pedestal, its surface worn smooth by generations of hands. Whatever rested there was gone before the king's men arrived, moved through the silent tunnels beneath the lake to a refuge history hasn't yet uncovered. The initiation rites of the Knights Templar weren't just ceremonies, they were psychological warfare designed to test loyalty to the breaking point. Imagine a candlelit chamber deep within a preceptory, where a young knight knelt before senior members, his future hanging on his willingness to cross lines no ordinary man would dare. According to trial confessions, recruits were ordered to deny Christ, spit on the cross, and even exchange kisses with their initiators in rituals so shocking, they became the centerpiece of heresy accusations. But were these acts truly sacrilege or something far more complex? Start with the most infamous charge, spitting on the cross. On the surface, it seems unforgivable for warrior monks sworn to defend Christianity. Yet medieval scholars note a startling parallel in Byzantine military rites, where soldiers symbolically renounced earthly ties to pledge absolute loyalty. Some historians argue the Templars adapted this tradition, using the cross not as an object of contempt but as a test. Forcing recruits to demonstrate their devotion was deeper than mere symbols. By spitting on wood and metal, they proved their faith lived beyond physical objects. Then there's the matter of the secret oaths. Trial transcripts describe initiates swearing to aid the order, by word, by hand, by every means possible, even if it meant committing sin. To outsiders, this sounded like a license for crime, but Templar apologists suggest it was a survival mechanism, an ironclad vow of secrecy to protect financial networks and military strategies. In an era when spies infiltrated every court, loose lips could doom entire campaigns. But the darkest rumors revolved around the osculum infum, the so-called obscene kiss, allegedly exchanged during initiation. Accusers claimed it involved the base of the spine, the navel, or even the mouth, suggesting ritualized humiliation. Yet medieval legal experts point out these descriptions mirror standard slander templates used against other persecuted groups from Cathars to Jews. The same charges appeared verbatim in unrelated trials, as if copied from a clerical playbook. Perhaps the most compelling evidence lies in what didn't happen. Despite thousands of Templars interrogated across Europe, confessions about initiation varied wildly. Some described grotesque rituals, others insisted their rites were pious and plain. This inconsistency hints at coerced testimony, with torturers feeding details to the accused. A few brave knights, like the preceptor of Normandy, even retracted their confessions once freed from the rack, declaring they'd lied to stop the pain. Beneath the scandal, a subtler truth emerges. The Templars' real secret may have been their understanding of human psychology. By pushing initiates to the edge, they forged unbreakable bonds. When a man has spat on what others hold sacred alongside brothers who have done the same, betrayal becomes unthinkable. What the Church called heresy might have been the ultimate loyalty test, one that created the most disciplined fighting force of the Middle Ages. And that, perhaps, was the true heresy, proving devotion could flourish beyond the walls of cathedrals, in the hearts of warriors who answered to a higher code. The Voynich manuscript isn't just a mystery, it's a ghost, a book written in no known language, filled with plants that don't exist and astrological charts that defy medieval astronomy. It's defied code breakers for 6 centuries. But what if its origins trace back to the Templars' shadows? At first glance, the connection seems tenuous. The manuscript surfaced in the 1500s, long after the Order's destruction. Yet look closer and uncanny patterns emerge. Start with the botanical illustrations. Among the Voynich's unidentifiable herbs are plants bearing striking resemblance to species found only in the Americas centuries before Columbus. Some scholars argue these resemble aloe vera and sunflowers, species documented in Templar-linked sites like Rosslyn Chapel. Could the Knights have encountered New World flora during rumored transatlantic voyages, recording them in a cipher only they could read? The manuscript's so-called pharmaceutical section shows women holding what appear to be medicinal roots, mirroring Templar hospitals' famed herbal remedies. Their networks spanned from Syrian apothecaries to alpine monastic gardens, exactly the kind of knowledge that might require encryption. Then there's the script itself. While modern analysts struggle to decode it, Templar financial records show they used a sophisticated cipher system for banking transactions. The Voynich's flowing glyphs share structural quirks with their financial codes, particularly the repetition of certain symbols in precise sequences. Even its infamous nymphs, nude female figures bathing in green liquid, echo Templar trial accusations of secret rituals involving sacred springs and baptismal rites. But the most chilling clue lies in the astrological wheels. Circular diagrams in the manuscript align with star charts used by medieval navigators, complete with symbols matching those found on Templar maritime maps. Could these pages hold encrypted sailing routes, ones that bypass the Strait of Gibraltar, leading to lands off Church-approved maps? Perhaps the Voynich wasn't meant to be understood by outsiders at all. Like their lost fleet and buried treasure, this manuscript might be another fragment of Templar knowledge, deliberately obscured, waiting, because the greatest secret isn't what the book says, but who left it behind and why they ensured we'd keep looking. Oak Island's money pit isn't just another treasure hunt. It's a time capsule of Templar fingerprints buried beneath layers of booby traps and cryptic clues. The story begins in 1795, when three teenagers exploring the island stumbled upon a strange depression in the ground. Beneath layers of logs and coconut fiber, a material nowhere near native to Nova Scotia, they hit a stone slab etched with symbols. This, the infamous 90-foot stone, would become the linchpin of a mystery spanning centuries. But what makes this more than just pirate loot? The markings. Faded but decipherable, the symbols match cipher techniques used by the Templars in their financial ledgers, a coded language few outside the order would have known. Dig deeper into the pit's design and the Templar connection tightens. Early excavators described layers of oak platforms every 10 feet, a deliberate grid echoing the order's architectural precision. Then there's the flooding tunnel, an ingenious system that fills the shaft with seawater when disturbed, a safeguard far too advanced for 18th century pirates. But the Templars, they'd engineered similar hydraulic traps beneath their preceptories, using water to protect sacred spaces. Then came the artifacts. In 1866, workers recovered a fragment of parchment believed to be vellum through a drill borehole. Vellum was rare and expensive, the kind of material used for Templar charters or religious texts, not casual pirate notes. Even stranger, spectrographic analysis in the 1960s detected traces of iron gall ink, the same formula found in medieval manuscripts. The most tantalizing clue, though, lies offshore. Sonar scans reveal anomalies beneath the island's waters, rectangular shapes too symmetrical to be natural. Some researchers suggest these could be remnants of a Templar shipbuilding yard, evidence of a transatlantic voyage centuries before Columbus. Local Micmac legends speak of men in white robes trading with indigenous peoples long before European colonization. Could the money pit be the last vestige of a Templar outpost, their final stronghold after fleeing persecution? Theories abound, from the Holy Grail to Solomon's gold, but one thing's certain: whoever built the pit knew secrets the modern world is still piecing together. Every collapsed tunnel, every flooded chamber whispers the same question: what was so valuable that it demanded an engineering marvel to hide it forever? The answer might still lie beneath the mud and salt water, guarded by the ghosts of knights who never truly surrendered. Among the Church's most tightly guarded secrets were the Gospels that never made it into the Bible text so radical they threatened to upend centuries of doctrine. And if the whispers are true, the Knights Templar didn't just read these forbidden pages, they may have died to protect them. At the heart of the rumors lies the Gospel of John, not the sanitized version preached in cathedrals, but a clandestine rendition rumored to depict Christ not as a sacrificial lamb, but as a teacher of hidden wisdom. Some scholars believe the Templars uncovered this heretical text during their excavations beneath the Temple Mount, where early Christian sects once hid their most controversial scrolls. But why would warrior monks care about ancient manuscripts? Because knowledge was power. The Templars' sudden rise from obscurity to influence mirrors a pattern seen throughout history. Those who control the narrative control the world. If they possessed alternate gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas with its cryptic sayings, or the Gospel of Mary Magdalene elevating her as Christ's closest disciple, they held leverage over the very church that sanctioned them. Imagine the implications: a knightly order armed with proof that the Vatican's teachings were incomplete or, worse, deliberately altered. The most damning evidence comes from their own trial records. Under torture, some Templars confessed to venerating a bearded head that spoke prophecies, a detail alarmingly similar to descriptions of John the Baptist's severed head in apocryphal texts. Other testimonies mention a red book containing rituals condemned by Rome. Were these fragments of the lost Evangelium Secundum Ionum, a gospel so explosive it was burned by early bishops? Even their architecture hints at suppressed beliefs. Templar chapels across Europe feature unusual carvings of Mary Magdalene holding a chalice, not the repentant sinner of official doctrine, but a priestess figure straight from Gnostic traditions. In the Languedoc region, where Cathar heretics preached similar ideas before being massacred, Templar strongholds stood suspiciously untouched until the Order's fall. Coincidence or evidence of a shared secret too dangerous to speak aloud? The bitterest irony, the Church's own suppression of these texts may have backfired. By erasing them from history, they made the Templars' rumored possession all the more valuable, because when you silence the truth, you turn it into a weapon, one that could topple empires or redeem the damned. And that, perhaps, was the greatest heresy of all. The fields of Bannockburn should have been an English victory. Edward II's army outnumbered the Scots 2-1, his heavy cavalry the terror of medieval Europe. Yet on that muddy June day in 1314, the unthinkable happened. A ragtag force of Scottish spearmen shattered England's finest. History credits Robert the Bruce's genius, but there's another player in this story, one whose presence was scrubbed from official records: the Knights Templar. Just 7 years after their order was supposedly destroyed, battle-hardened veterans of the Holy Land may have been the hidden architects of Scotland's triumph. Start with the tactics. The Scottish schiltron, a hedgehog of pikes that repelled Edward's cavalry, bore an uncanny resemblance to Templar defensive formations perfected during the Crusades. Unlike European knights who glorified single combat, the Templars fought as a unit, their discipline honed in the scorching sands of Palestine. Bruce's masterstroke was deploying these formations in coordinated groups, flanking the English instead of holding static lines. This wasn't the improvisation of Highland clans, it was the calculated maneuver of men who'd faced Saladin's armies. Then there's the matter of timing. The Templars were officially disbanded in 1312, yet chronicles from the era note foreign knights fighting alongside Bruce, men whose armor bore no heraldry but whose skill suggested elite training. French archives later revealed that Templar ships had docked in Scotland's Western Isles months before Bannockburn, their cargo unrecorded but their passengers rumored to include veterans of the Order's last stand at Acre. Perhaps most telling is what happened after the battle. While English corpses littered the field, Bruce granted lands near Loch Awe to an obscure group called the Frères Militaires, a name suspiciously close to the Templars' Latin title, Fratres Militiae Templi. These shadowy brothers built a chapel at Kilmartin, its carvings featuring the distinctive twin knight symbol of the Templars' seal. Coincidence or proof that Scotland's freedom was bought with secrets smuggled from burning pyres in Paris? The final clue lies underground, beneath Rosslyn Chapel, built by Bruce's descendants. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed chambers aligned with the battlefield's geography, as if mapping the positions where Templar tactics turned the tide. Whether they fought as individuals or whispered advice to Bruce from the shadows, one thing is clear: Bannockburn wasn't just a Scottish victory, it was the last battle of the Knights Templar. Their navigational prowess wasn't just skill, it was celestial mastery, a secret written in the stars. While medieval Europe still clung to folklore about sea monsters and flat earths, the Knights Templar charted courses across open oceans with eerie precision. Their ships didn't wander, they moved with purpose, as if guided by something beyond the crude compasses of their time. The key to their accuracy might lie not in the tools they carried, but in the knowledge they guarded, an understanding of the heavens so advanced it bordered on heresy. Consider the Newport Tower in Rhode Island, a stone structure whose origins baffle historians. Built with mortar techniques identical to Templar chapels, its narrow windows align with celestial events: the summer solstice sunrise, the lunar standstill. Too exact for coincidence, these alignments mirror star charts found in Templar commanderies from Portugal to Jerusalem. Even more telling, the tower's latitude matches that of the Templar stronghold at Toma, Portugal, suggesting it wasn't just a random outpost but a calculated node in a global navigational web. Then there's the mysterious Zeno map, a 15th century nautical chart depicting Greenland and the North Atlantic with startling accuracy centuries before mainstream European exploration. Its creators, Venetian navigators, claimed they'd copied older charts from a knightly order. The map's grid lines, using a mathematical system unknown to contemporary cartographers, bear the same geometric ratios found in Templar-built churches. Were these diagrams salvaged from lost Templar ships, passed down through shadowy maritime networks? The most tantalizing clue comes from their alleged connection to Polynesian wayfinders. Before Magellan's circumnavigation, Pacific islanders were crossing vast oceans using star paths and wave patterns. Templar ships, spotted as far as the Canary Islands by Arab traders, seem to have employed similar techniques, navigating by the pulsar rhythms of distant stars, a method Europe wouldn't discover until the 20th century. How did medieval knights learn celestial navigation so refined? Even Venice's finest mariners couldn't replicate it. Perhaps the answer lies in something they found beneath the Temple Mount, not gold, but knowledge. Ancient Hebrew texts describe the Ark of the Covenant as emitting a celestial hum, a sound modern physicists associate with pulsar frequencies. Could the Templars have stumbled upon artifacts or scrolls that decoded the language of the stars? Their suppression of conventional maps, insistence on oral navigation rights, and sudden mastery of transoceanic routes all point to a secret too valuable to commit to parchment. And then there's the ultimate question. If they could navigate by the stars well enough to cross uncharted seas, what or who were they following? The same celestial paths that led them to the New World might have been guiding them toward something far older, a truth written not in ink but in constellations. The night sky was their map, and we've only just begun to decipher its coordinates. Dense forests along the Narragansett Bay hide a secret that shouldn't exist, weather-worn graves marked with medieval European crosses, their carvings too old, too precise to belong to colonial settlers. These aren't the tidy headstones of Puritans. They're slab markers identical to those in 12th century Templar cemeteries across France, etched with symbols that whisper of a far older presence. The so-called Templar graves of New England predate Columbus by at least 2 centuries, and their existence challenges everything we thought we knew about who reached the Americas first. Take the infamous Newport Tower just miles from these graves. Long dismissed as a colonial windmill, its architecture tells a different story. The tower's 8 arches align with solstices and equinoxes, mimicking Templar chapels like Toma in Portugal. More startling, the mortar composition matches samples from Templar sites in Europe, not colonial recipes. Nearby, a stone slab known as the Westford Knight bears a crude but unmistakable image of a 14th century European sword, a type carried by Templars worn into the rock as if someone centuries ago wanted to leave a message. Then there's the burial sites themselves. In the 1960s, archaeologists excavating a grave in Fall River, Massachusetts, found a skeleton clad in corroded chainmail fragments, its posture suggesting a Christian burial with hands folded over a long-vanished sword. Radiocarbon dating placed it between 1250 and 1350, right when Templar ships vanished from European records. But the clincher, soil analysis revealed traces of pollen from European plants not introduced to America until the 1600s. Local indigenous oral histories add another layer. Passamaquoddy legends speak of Iron Men who arrived in great canoes with wings before violent clashes drove them inland. Could these have been Templar survivors, shipwrecked and desperate? French explorers in the 1500s reported encountering Algonquin tribes who used words suspiciously similar to Old French for sword and shield, terms that might have lingered from earlier contact. The most haunting evidence lies in the carvings. One grave marker in particular, found near the Taunton River, displays a Templar cross pate alongside Norse runes, an impossible fusion unless the knights had encountered Viking descendants in Vinland and absorbed their knowledge. Another shows a ship with a squared sail, a design abandoned in Europe by 1300 but consistent with Templar naval records. Were these graves left by a doomed expedition or deliberate markers for something hidden? The answer might lie beneath the soil. Ground-penetrating radar near the sites has detected metallic anomalies at depths suggesting medieval-era deposition, too deep for colonial activity. Until excavations are allowed, we're left with whispers in stone, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a history that wasn't supposed to happen. And that's the real secret. Sometimes the most subversive act isn't hiding the truth, but leaving it in plain sight, waiting for the world to catch up. Among the tangled web of Templar myths, few have captured modern imaginations like the Priory of Sion, a shadowy order said to guard the bloodline of Christ and Mary Magdalene, with roots stretching back to the Templars themselves. The only problem, it was all an elaborate hoax spun in the 20th century by a convicted con artist named Pierre Plantard. The story begins in 1956, when Plantard filed papers in France officially registering the priory as an association dedicated to Christian chivalry. Harmless enough until he started planting forged documents in libraries, hinting at a centuries-old conspiracy involving Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and of course the Knights Templar. These weren't just random forgeries. Plantard meticulously crafted parchments called the Dossier Secrets, filled with fake genealogies linking himself to the Merovingian dynasty, an ancient French bloodline some conspiracy theorists absurdly claimed descended from Jesus. He even inserted references to these documents into legitimate historical archives, banking on future researchers stumbling upon them and taking the bait. The scheme might have faded into obscurity if not for a fateful twist in 1969, when British author Henry Lincoln discovered the dossiers and alongside two collaborators turned them into the best-selling book Holy Blood, Holy Grail. Suddenly, the myth went global, framing the Templars as mere foot soldiers in a grander, older conspiracy. Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code later turbocharged this fiction, presenting the priory as fact and the Templars as its armed wing. But here's what Brown and others missed or ignored. In 1993, French investigators raided Plantard's home and found piles of draft forgeries hidden in his own handwriting. Under oath, he admitted the entire plot was fabricated to gain prestige. Even the name Sion wasn't some nod to Jerusalem's Mount Zion, but a pun on the French word for hobby, loisir. The real tragedy, this hoax distracted from the Templars' actual historical intrigue. While conspiracy theorists chased phantom bloodlines, they overlooked the Knights' genuine innovations, their banking system, their architectural genius, their possible transatlantic voyages. The priory myth reduced them to bit players in someone else's fantasy, obscuring the fact that their true legacy needed no embellishment. The Templars didn't disappear into secret societies. They dissolved into history, leaving behind clues far more fascinating than fiction. The lesson: sometimes the most dangerous lies aren't the ones that hide the truth, but the ones that make you stop looking for it. The island of Cyprus hides more than sun-bleached ruins. It guards the skeleton of Templar ambition, a crumbling fortress where whispers of the past still cling to the stones like sea salt. At Colossi Castle, what tourists see today is just the outer shell of what was once a sprawling Mediterranean nerve center for the order. Built in the 13th century as a sugar production hub, yes, the Templars dominated the medieval sugar trade. This limestone stronghold's true power lay beneath its vaulted halls. Recent ground scans revealed a network of subterranean tunnels leading to the coast, wide enough to move cargo unseen. Not just sugar, either. These passages could have smuggled relics, gold, or something far more volatile, knowledge. Then there's Paphos Castle, perched on Cyprus' western coast like a sentinel. Unlike typical medieval forts, its design is lopsided, deliberately asymmetrical to confuse invaders. Templar architects incorporated optical illusions into the stonework. Certain angles make the seaward walls appear farther away than they are, a trick straight from Byzantine military manuals they'd acquired in the Holy Land. But the real secret lies in the chapel's floor. Beneath a worn mosaic of St. George, archaeologists found a hollow chamber containing oxidized iron brackets, mounts for a chest long since removed. Local legends insist it once held scrolls from Alexandria's lost library, spirited away before the final collapse of Acre. Cross the Aegean to Greece and the trail grows even stranger. At the monastery of St. John on Patmos, Templar symbols hide in plain sight. A cross pate carved into the refectory's cornerstone, a fresco of the Apocalypse where a knight's shield bears their telltale red cross. The monks insist these were added later, but radiocarbon dating tells a different story. The pigments match the early 1400s, decades after the order's official dissolution. How did Templar iconography appear in one of Orthodox Christianity's holiest sites? The answer might lie 30 miles north at the abandoned fortress of Naxos. Here, the Venetians who supposedly inherited the island left behind a peculiar architectural legacy. A watchtower with a perfect line of sight to Patmos, its basement lined with Templar-style drainage channels. Not for water, for something heavier. Merchant logs from 1421 mention Venetian ships stopping at Naxos to load iron-bound chests from the tower before sailing west. To Malta, perhaps, the island became a refuge for exiled knights, and its famed hypogeum shares uncanny structural similarities with Naxos vaults. What makes these Mediterranean strongholds unique isn't just their hidden chambers or strategic locations, it's their duality. They weren't just military installations, they were living libraries, economic engines, and way stations for something far grander. The sugar trade financed their operations, the fortresses guarded their secrets, and the tunnels connected it all. When the King of France moved against them, these remote outposts became lifelines. A knight fleeing Paris could board a ship in La Rochelle, transfer to a Templar galley in Cyprus, and vanish into the Greek archipelago, all under the protection of brothers who'd long since erased their insignia but kept their oaths. The greatest proof of their ingenuity, these sites still guard their truths. At Famagusta's Othello Tower, named centuries before Shakespeare wrote his play, restoration workers uncovered a Templar seal bricked into a chimney. Not hidden, displayed, as if to say, we were here. Beneath the tourist brochures and guided tours, the stones remember. You just have to know where to look. In the shadowed corners of medieval Europe, where scripture and superstition collided, the Knights Templar were rumored to be scholars of something far older than the Church, the Kabbalah. This ancient Jewish mystical tradition, with its intricate diagrams of the Tree of Life and esoteric interpretations of Hebrew scripture, was forbidden territory for Christians. Yet whispers persist that the Templars didn't just study it, they wove its secrets into the very stones of their greatest strongholds. Take Chartres Cathedral, a marvel of Gothic architecture long suspected of Templar influence. Among its soaring arches and stained glass lies a curious detail, the labyrinth on the nave floor. To most pilgrims, it's a meditation path, but Kabbalists recognize its pattern immediately, a near-perfect replica of the Sephirot, the 10 spheres of divine energy in Kabbalistic thought. Even more telling are the cathedral's sculpted column capitals, where Hebrew letters hide among Christian iconography, spelled out in the postures of carved figures. Was this coincidence or a coded nod to a shared mystical heritage? Then there's the matter of their ciphers. Templar banking documents recovered from Paris show numerical codes aligning with gematria, a Kabbalistic practice of assigning numerical values to Hebrew letters to uncover hidden meanings. Some of these codes match sacred phrases from the Zohar, Kabbalah's foundational text, written in Spain around the same time the Templars were expanding their operations there. How did Latin-speaking knights access Jewish mystical texts in an era when possession could mean execution? The answer may lie in Toledo, Spain's famed city of translators, where Christian, Jewish, and Muslim scholars worked side by side. Templar agents were known to frequent these circles, possibly smuggling forbidden knowledge back to their preceptories, but the most tantalizing evidence comes from their alleged rituals. During trials, several knights confessed to worshipping a bearded head that bestowed wisdom, a detail mirroring Kabbalistic legends of the Urim and Thummim, oracular stones said to speak through divine light. Others described initiation rites involving cords tied in specific knots, recalling the red string of Kabbalah used to ward off evil. Even their famed silence takes on new meaning. Kabbalists believed certain divine names could only be transmitted orally, never written, lest they fall into unworthy hands. The irony is thick. The same church that condemned Kabbalah as heresy may have unwittingly harbored its students in the ranks of its most elite knights. Whether the Templars sought mystical power, financial encryption, or a path to divine truth, their legacy endures in stone and symbol. And perhaps that was the greatest Kabbalistic lesson of all. Sometimes the deepest secrets aren't hidden in vaults, but in plain sight, waiting for those who know how to see. The white cloaks may have faded from history, but the spirit of the Knights Templar never truly died. Across the globe, modern organizations claim direct lineage to the medieval order, keeping rituals alive and guarding secrets passed down through centuries. The most prominent is the Ordo Supremus Militaris Templi Hierosolomitani Osmth for short, a group recognized by the United Nations as an NGO and boasting chapters in over 30 countries. Their public ceremonies feature sword blessings and vows of chivalry, but beneath the pageantry lies a web of intrigue. The Osmth insists their roots stretch back to surviving Templars who fled to Portugal after the Purge, reorganizing under new names like the Order of Christ, which famously sponsored Henry the Navigator's voyages. But how credible are these claims? Historians remain divided. While Portugal's Order of Christ did inherit Templar properties in the 1400s, direct continuity is murky. The Osmth current iteration emerged in the 1930s, cobbling together fragments of Templar-inspired groups, yet their rituals contain eerie echoes of the past. Initiates still undergo symbolic trials mirroring medieval accounts blindfolded, asked cryptic questions about loyalty and sacrifice. More striking are their financial activities. Like their namesakes, modern Templars operate charity networks and investment funds, albeit with significantly less gold. Then there's the matter of relics. In a vault beneath their Geneva headquarters, the Osmth allegedly safeguards a fragment of the True Cross and a 12th century parchment listing guardians of the Grail. Whether authentic or clever replicas, these artifacts fuel speculation. Even their humanitarian work, from disaster relief to preserving Crusader castles, mirrors the original order's blend of piety and pragmatism. Not all claimants are so benign. Shadowy factions from rural France to South America brandish forged charters and demand obscene initiation fees. One group in the Pyrenees was raided in 2012 for stockpiling medieval weapons, insisting they were preparing for the reckoning. Such extremists muddy the waters, making it harder to separate legitimate custodians from opportunists. Perhaps the most fascinating thread lies in Scotland, where the Templar and Masonic traditions intertwine. The Knights of St. Andrew, a Masonic-affiliated group, perform rites involving Solomon's Temple and coded gestures said to trace back to Templar survivors. Their Grandmaster once showed me a 17th century ledger listing Brothers of the T, who funded Jacobite rebellions, a hint that political subversion, another Templar hallmark, never left their playbook. What unites these modern heirs isn't just symbolism, but a shared conviction that the Order's mission remains unfinished. Whether preserving ancient knowledge, pursuing spiritual enlightenment, or simply keeping a flame alive, they stand as living proof that history's most enigmatic brotherhood still walks among us, just out of frame, just out of reach. Beneath the Vatican's hallowed halls, locked away in climate-controlled vaults, lie stacks of parchment so controversial, even popes have hesitated to reveal them. These aren't just dusty manuscripts, they're the last, unturned pages of the Templar story. While the Chinon Parchment shocked historians when it surfaced in 2001, insiders whisper it's merely the tip of an iceberg. The Vatican's secret archive, a labyrinth of 35 miles of shelving, allegedly holds trial transcripts, confiscated Templar account books, and even personal correspondence between Pope Clement V and King Philip. documents that could rewrite history. Take the so-called Fondo Templari, a classified section rumored to contain interrogation records from Templar holdouts in Spain and Portugal. Unlike the French confessions extracted under torture, these testimonies were given freely, some claiming the order's treasures were moved months before the arrests. Even more explosive are whispers of a papal bull never publicly released absolving the Templars of all heresy charges but suppressed due to Philip's blackmail. Archivists who have glimpsed fragments describe marginal notes in Clement's hand reading, "burn after reading," yet the document survived. Why? Because bureaucracy outlasts even popes. Then there's the mystery of the Avignon files. When the papacy relocated to France in the 14th century, crates of Templar records went with them. Medieval inventories list these as financial instruments, but Vatican scholars privately admit some contain detailed maps of Mediterranean and Atlantic trade routes that shouldn't have existed in the 13th century. Were the Templars charting lands beyond Europe's known horizons? The files remain restricted, fueling speculation they hold coordinates to undiscovered Templar sanctuaries. But the most tantalizing secret might be the Cathar Cross, an artifact catalogued in 1989 during an internal audit. Described as a silver reliquary with dual Templar and Cathar symbolism, it vanished from the inventory within hours. Only a blurry Polaroid remains showing an inscription, Veritas vos liberabit, the truth shall set you free. Some believe it's proof the Templars sheltered Cathar heretics, preserving their Gnostic Gospels. Others think it's a key literally. Medieval locksmiths sometimes crafted mechanisms that required specific relics to trigger them. What's chilling isn't just what's hidden, but why. The Vatican's official stance is that these materials are under study, yet access requires approval from a council of cardinals, a process that can take decades. When pressed in 2007, a senior archivist let slip that certain Templar documents could destabilize ecumenical relations. Translation: the truth might prove the Church knowingly sacrificed innocent men for political expediency. Perhaps that's the real secret lurking in those vaults, not evidence of Templar heresy, but of their unwavering faith and the institution that betrayed them. Every locked drawer, every redacted line whispers the same question: what frightens power more than a lie, the moment someone speaks the truth? From their clandestine excavations under the Temple Mount to the whispered survival of their fleet, the 25 secrets of the Knights Templar don't just rewrite history, they shatter it. We've uncovered how these warrior monks weren't just devout soldiers, but cunning bankers, master navigators, and guardians of knowledge so explosive it toppled kings. Their white cloaks hid alchemical symbols, their chapels concealed celestial maps, and their lost treasures might still lie buried on distant shores. The Chinon Parchment exposed the Vatican's betrayal, while the curse of Jacques de Molay proved some oaths outlast even fire. From Baphomet's misunderstood whispers to their possible voyage to the New World, every revelation peels back another layer of their enigma. But here's the truth that binds these secrets together. The Templars were never just medieval knights. They were architects of the modern world, pioneers of international banking, cryptographers before the word existed, and perhaps even transatlantic explorers centuries ahead of their time. Their legacy isn't just in the gold they hid or the relics they guarded, but in the shadows they cast across history. The Church condemned them, kings feared them, and yet 700 years later we're still piecing together their puzzle. So which secret stunned you the most? Was it the Templar graves in New England, defying everything we knew about pre-Columbian contact, the Gnostic Gospels they might have died to protect? Or the eerie precision of de Molay's curse, as if he'd etched his revenge into time itself? Drop your thoughts below. We're obsessed with these mysteries, and your theories might just spark the next deep dive. If unraveling history's greatest enigmas thrills you as much as it does us, don't miss out. Hit subscribe and join the hunt for more buried truths, because the past isn't just a story, it's a labyrinth, and every twist leads deeper into the unknown. The Templars taught us that. Now it's your turn to follow the trail.